Welcome everyone to Innovation in Practice, The Great Return, Part 2. I'm Dr. Marcia Ruben. I'm an associate professor here at Golden Gate University. I designed and oversee the Masters in Leadership program. And I've been interested in the intersection of leadership, complexity, and neuroscience for several years. And I was fortunate to receive a 2-year research professorship from 2016 to 2018, where I had the opportunity to really explore this topic and add that information and the latest findings to our graduate leadership courses. I've also been a meditator and wellness proponent for decades. So I'm delighted to be here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Ruth Zaplin. Dr. Zaplin is a senior executive in residence in the School of Public Affairs, Department of Public Administration Policy at American University in Washington, D.C. Sorry, I'm just going to take my phone off the hook. She teaches courses in leadership, organizational analysis, coaching for performance, managing conflict, strategic communications, and ethics. And she also serves as a director of executive coaching for the key executive leadership program in the School of Public Affairs that reaches all different agencies in the federal government. And Dr. Zaplin also teaches mindfulness practices to hundreds of leaders across the federal government. So let's talk about what we're going to do today. This is going to be an interactive session. We're going to define VUCA and have you consider how it's showing up for you. We're going to discuss burnout and some strategies to take care of yourself. And we're going to do an interactive exercise. I will also talk a bit about your brain and mindfulness, and you're going to have a chance to experience a couple of short mindfulness practices. And then we're going to open it up to your questions. So if you want to put your questions in the chat as you go, that would be great. So next. Thank you. Okay, I loved this picture, so I had to figure out a way to include it. So we're 2 years into this COVID-19 pandemic, and it's clearly impacted all of us personally and professionally. And it's impacted business, some in a good way. Some have had to scale up and they grew and thrived, and others unfortunately went out of business. And the pandemic, as we all know, has disrupted supply chains, the travel industry, the retail industry, and it's caused disruption in our everyday lives. It's also disrupted education. GGU, which was a pioneer in online education, we began online education in 1997, so that was a pretty easy shift for us. But our in-person courses shifted to Zoom, and that's really been an adjustment for both professors and students. And most, if not all, of our students are working adults, and they found themselves, many, working at home, at least for the first year, and in the first year and some into the second year, being both parents, childcare folks, and teachers to their children, while at the same time working and being students. And it's been really stressful, to say the least. And we've also had some students who got COVID. So that's been stressful, as professors to learn about that. So there were some positive things about COVID, believe it or not. Many realized that they really liked working at home. They don't have long commutes, and surprisingly, they're more productive. On the other hand, they deeply miss the face-to-face connections with coworkers, and that's been an ongoing challenge for companies. And so a lot of companies began to look at hybrid workplaces, and they've been trying to figure out what's the best balance to ensure productivity and to retain employees in that sense of connection, all the while getting ready for the great return, which we thought was happening in December. And then, of course, that's shifted. Those plans are shifting as the Omicron variant has swept the world. So all in all, we're living in a VUCA world. So next slide. So VUCA, I don't know how many of you have heard about it, is a term that was coined by the U.S. Army War College many years ago, but it began to be more widely used about 20 years ago. That's when I first learned about it. And so we're going to ask you to think about how this VUCA is showing up in your world. So let me define it for you. So V stands for volatility and refers to the increasing pace of change. It's characterized by unpredictability. U stands for uncertainty, when we're unsure about the future and we can't predict it. And C stands for complexity. And to me, that means that things are so interconnected, there are no easy solutions. You can't really identify a cause and effect to fix something. So in complexity, things emerge, and really the best strategy is to try to move out of chaos, if you're in chaos, and experiment until you find something that works. And we certainly see that happening. And A stands for ambiguity, and that's kind of like being in a fog. It's a lack of clarity. So some examples of VUCA include 9/11. Remember how it seemed like everything was upside down. We were all just so disrupted. And then, of course, the 2008 financial crisis. We didn't know if everything was going to collapse, if we were all going to lose our houses and all our money. It was really stressful. And then, of course, COVID. And I was thinking about it, even the title of this program, The Great Return, was disrupted by the Omicron variant. So what we'd like you to do is in chat to think of what's one example of how VUCA is showing up in your world. So let me give you a couple of examples. For me, we were invited to a family event in March in Texas, and we would have gone in a heartbeat. But now we're thinking, I don't know, do we want to travel? Do we want to get on a plane? Do we want to go to Texas? So that's one example. And the other one is, for me, it seems like my work and personal life are just all blended into one thing right now. So what's one example for each of you? And let's watch the chat, and maybe we could let's see, we can look at what we have here. So certainly travel has been impacted. Okay, let's see if we can think of some other examples. How is VUCA showing up? Several trips planned and canceled, birthdays of grandkids. Yeah, the medical care system. I've heard that a lot of surgeries in one part of the country are being canceled. Seeing elderly relatives. Not sure if we should go into the office. Oh my gosh, dinner party with 2 friends canceled due to COVID exposure. Just staying connected with family and friends. Zoom is great, but it's not quite the same. You can't hug over Zoom. Okay, we're in the office, then we're not. Anything else? Okay, grandkids getting exposed in school, canceled trips of a lifetime. Oh no, missing travel. We were going to go in person here at GGU, and it was changed at the last minute. If that's happened, Ruth, at your university, and wondering who's going to show up to class. Thanks, Heather. Anything else? Okay, not everyone likes or has access to digital tools like Zoom. I mean, I know some students are Zooming in from apartments, with the sharing with roommates, in-person collaboration with coworkers, the separation of people in the classes. Students, yeah, finding masks was hard. Now it's a little bit easier, but are we getting the right masks? There's fakes out there. So lots of things that we never ever thought about. Anything else? Okay, unfortunately it's a good list, and this is our life. The environment is taking a break. Childcare, random shootings, people are going crazy. Trying to interpret the CDC guidelines, trying to separate thoughts about work when off hours, due to working from home. Can't plan fun events and activities. Oh, and the supply chain. I mean, last year it was toilet paper. This year it's holiday gifts. Okay. Oh, that food costs are going up. You can't really see your doctor. Job losses. Have to be more spontaneous about events. You really can't plan for the future. Some of our favorite businesses are closing. I've seen that Abercrombie and Finch is closing downtown San Francisco. Not that I shop there, but a lot of retail shops are closing. Increased bad assumptions due to texting only. All right. Yeah. Lack of in-person interaction in business. Trying to stay positive. And, the blues come on. I don't know about for all of you, but every once in a while, if I'm not busy and I stop and think, can get pretty stressful and depressing. So I think we've got a really good list here. And so let's see if we can have one more possibly. And then I'm going to turn this over to Ruth. Okay, not being able to see people smile. And I would say not being able to hug people. That's what I miss the most. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over now to Dr. Zaplin, who's going to take it from here.
Now, thank you, Dr. Ruben. I'm wondering, can you all see me? Can you see me?
I can, Ruth. Yeah.
You can? Marsha, you can?
Yes, we can see you. Everyone in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Because I can't see any of you, and I'm going to turn the slideshow off as we get towards the end when we do the meditation piece so that I can actually see you all. So I'm a little disconnected here, and I am very delighted to be here. Not surprisingly, in an increasingly VUCA world, we thought we knew what burnout was. I bet everyone in our video audience has experienced burnout at some point in their work life. Well, now it's exponentially increased. That's what the research is saying. And in 2019, the World Health Organization finally included burnout in its international classification of diseases, describing it as a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And so I'm going to ask you by a show of hands. I can't see you, and I'm not going to see when you push the reaction button. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Dr. Ruben, to monitor this. How many of you think your work-life stress has increased over the only two participants raised their hand? 3, oh, come on, 5. 6, yeah. So COVID seems to have pushed us over the edge in terms of burnout. Here are 3 symptoms of burnout. Take a minute and just scan the explanations of each symptom. And I want to point out one in particular. I'd like to point out cynical, because cynicism has risen in a deeply troubling way. It also reflects a lack of trust of what's going on in the world, the bigger world, right? Many people feel very let down by their government's poor preparation for the pandemic. People feel cynical about the injustices at work. Their well-being is not being addressed at work related to the pandemic. I'm just wondering, let's kind of do this again. Exhaustion, show of hands, overextended. Are you overextended? Depleted psychologically? Hands went up right away. How about cynicism? Just annoyed, alienated, rejected. We can't even imagine what's coming around the corner, right? Things that we never would have imagined 2 years ago. And then how are we doing balancing home life and work life? How are we doing? Are we efficient in either place? So there are ways, though, that we can care for ourselves. But I want to say this and make this really important point. We can't just fix burnout by waving a magic wand. There are things that we can do for ourselves, and Marcia's going to talk about those, but that's not going to be enough. Organizations are also going to have to change. They're going to have to be more flexible. They're going to have to be more understanding, among other things, maybe change their work policies at some level. But there are things that we can do, and Marcia's going to talk about those right here.
Okay, so here's some things some self-care things that you can do. So number one, and these are easier said than done, but number one is setting limits and manage your time. Give yourself enough time to get things done. Really try not to overschedule yourself. Compartmentalize your cognitive load. So our brains have limited capacity. They're energy intensive and they use a lot of glucose and oxygen, especially this very important front part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. And really the research shows that you can only do one thing at a time. Now there was very clear, people used to say, researchers said, don't multitask at all. Well, if you're trying to do two things that require attention, you absolutely can't do that. But if I'm going to pick up my pen and write something, I can do that. So that's sort of multitasking, I guess. So instead of trying to do everything and become overwhelmed, choose one thing to focus on. Or another trick that I've used for many years is if I'm overwhelmed, I just stop and say, what's the one best thing that I can do right now? And I find that really helpful because it focuses my brain. And then I go, okay, and that's amazing what you can get done just in 20 minutes. And this is a tough one. Learn to say no. And I think reframing that is learn to say or choose to say yes to yourself. So that has to do with evaluating your priorities at home and at work and seeing how you can shorten your to-do list. You can see if you can cut activities or delegate activities that you don't like or you can't handle, or share your concerns with your employer and others. And when you quit accepting tasks out of guilt or a false sense of obligation, that'll free you up and give you more time for things that you enjoy. And this is also a tough one, especially those of us who identify with our work, but really detach from work. Working from home makes this hard, but also using technology to connect at work can cause you to feel like you're always on the job. And this can lead to chronic stress. So on the weekend, turn off your smartphone. Don't check emails all the time. Seek guidance from your manager about expectations for when you can disconnect. And if you work from home, dress for work and have a dedicated workspace if possible. And this is something that I do. I really try to do when I'm done working. I change into my sweats, and if I can, I take a walk. And I don't have kids, but if you have kids, you can do an activity with your kids, but actually making a physical disconnection. And if it's possible that you can have flex hours, do that. And then the final two things are get enough sleep. There's a lot of guidance online to help you with this. And neuroscientists have found that sleep is really important. While we're sleeping, it helps us learn. Learning is embedded. It also helps us unlearn. and getting enough sleep. And I think this is important. And I'm sure if you've experienced this, but if you get enough sleep, it helps us relieve anxiety, which centers here in our prefrontal cortex. And it helps us to do better on tasks. And then the last thing is self-compassion. That really helps with anxiety and burnout. And there is some neuroscience research that shows that self-compassion and being kind to others does impact parts of the brain. There's a lot of fMRI studies that have been done on that. So we have to really all give ourselves some grace. We're living through really a very challenging time. No one thought that this was going to last for more than 2 years. I mean, I'm hearing scientists say it could last for a lot longer. So we really do need to figure out ways to become more resilient and take care of ourselves. And then the next thing, and we're going to talk a little bit later about exercising mindfulness. So I'm going to turn this back over to Ruth.
Thank you. Have you ever seen this before? It's called the circle of control, circle of concern. It's a very good way to look at the issues in your life. And basically what this circle, I just want to walk through the circle because it might be a useful framework for you going forward. Think about your own work situation now, okay? Think about those situations where you feel symptoms of burnout, where you feel exhausted, you feel cynical, you feel inefficient. Sorry for getting you depressed here, right? Well, you will feel better by the end of the talk, I promise. So thinking about those areas, look at the very inner circle here, which is called, the purple, is the circle of control. These are all the things in your life that you actually have direct control over. Okay, that's the inner circle. Going out, the green circle, is the circle of influence. This circle is maybe you can influence the situation in some way, so directly or indirectly you could have more control here. Okay, it would be a way of expanding your circle of control, and the idea is to really think about where you might expand how you could control things in your life. Okay, either directly or indirectly. And then the outer circle, the circle of concern, is all those aspects of our life that impact us and we have absolutely no control. We have no control over the traffic. We have no control over the weather. We have no control over whether our boss shows up angry to work or not. Okay, so we only get more stressed out if we try to do things in our circle of concern, because it's not going to happen. So we begin to look at our circle of control first and think of what is one concern. We're only asking you to think of one concern in this exercise that is in your control to address that could ameliorate the symptoms of burnout. Okay? And we don't even have to go to circle of influence here. Just go right into circle of control. And we're going to put you into groups of 4. And we're going to allow 8 minutes for this exercise and talk about what is one concern that is in your control related to burnout that you can actually address, and share with the group and brainstorm solutions. Have a chat, introduce yourselves when you get into the breakout groups, and have a good conversation, and Marcia will debrief on the other side.
So let's just have a very, very quick, what are some, in popcorn style, what are some things that you came up with to manage burnout that are in your control? Just.
I'm Suzanne, if I can go for our group.
Yes, please.
Okay, how I respond to the situations.
Yeah.
Anxiety, go to a workout. Manage the food that we put in our mouths and the quality. Organize the house. Control over our environment. Watching light comedy programming over news. Those are some things we came up with.
Excellent suggestions. Okay, another group. Let's hear just really quickly. Anything else?
We came up with turn off your device so you don't stay up at midnight addicted to whatever you find on your computer. If you haven't exercised by 5, go do it. And telling people up front during the day, these are my plans for the day. Anything else will either have to wait or I'll get to it tomorrow.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Heather. Okay, anything else? Let's have a couple more. Okay, JL, are you raising your hand? Oh, wait, I think you're on mute.
I was just saying I liked what Heather had to say.
Yeah, okay, good. Anything else? Anything else that's really important that you think would be helpful?
I think for us, for our group, we talked about self-care and absolutely making it a priority, like calendaring time for yourself. And some of us were like, yeah, but then other things take over. And it's like, no, you need to make yourself a priority because you have to be accountable to you, you know? And so that actually really resonated with me. And then also deep listening and just really being present in the moment so we don't miss things and then have to like figure out that miscommunication.
Okay, great. Thanks, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we are ready to move on. So we want to share with you something else, which is mindfulness. And so Ruth is going to share that with you now, and then we'll do a couple of mindfulness practices.
So can you see the screen now? Great. So the bottom line, as I did mention to you, there are many organizational issues that are outside of your control. All right. And it's good to recognize what's in your control, what's in your circle of influence, and what's not in your control. Okay. The circle of concern. So the bottom line, though, is you are the first organization you must master. Okay. So we need to really focus on what we can control. And it turns out that mindfulness meditation is often thought of as a universal antidote for what ails us. So I'm going to guess that there are a bunch of you out there who say, hey, I already do it. I got this one. Or you do some daily centering practice, and that would be really great. I really want to share this very short, wonderful video that explains how mindfulness works on the brain. And the speaker is Dr. Daniel Siegel, who is the head of child psychiatry at UCLA. He's a Harvard-educated psychiatrist, and I think you're really going to enjoy this.
Understanding how mindfulness works is by looking into the circuitry of the brain. And so we all have actually a handy model of the brain. which is actually our hand. So if you take your hand and fold your thumb into the middle of your palm and your fingers over, this would be an example of a brain where the person's eyes are here, the top of their head is here, their brain is connected to the body itself at the spinal cord, which is represented in your wrist. The way the brain is composed, its architecture, helps us understand how mindfulness works. If you lift your fingers up and lift your thumb up, we go to the first part of the brain in the skull, which is here called the brainstem. And this is where you have the regulation of the body and where you also have the fight, flight, and freeze response that are created. This area of the brainstem, a very primitive area, works together with the next area that's on top of it called the limbic area, and this is represented by the thumb. The limbic area helps generate our emotions. There are parts of it that help us feel our feelings. We also distinguish different aspects of memory, and in particular, this limbic area responds to our relationships. Okay, now this limbic area and brainstem area, they work together. And because these are below the next area of the brain, the cortex, we call them subcortical. A lot of our impulses, our automatic behaviors, our just innate learned reactions to things, our instincts, are driven by these subcortical areas, including information that comes up from the body itself. Your heart pounding, your intestines churning, feed up to the limbic area in the brainstem and get you all revved up. So that's a kind of loop that creates what we call our emotional state. The cortex developed when we became mammals also, as the limbic area did, but the front part of this cortex, from your second to last knuckles down to your fingernails, the front part developed when we became primates, and this part where your fingernails are is called the prefrontal cortex because it's the frontmost part of the frontal lobe. This is the part that's most developed in humans. And it's this part that gives us the ability to pause before acting on an impulse. And the way it works is there are fibers that come down from this middle prefrontal area that actually calm down the irritable limbic area or brainstem area. Literally, this prefrontal region regulates the lower subcortical, limbic, brainstem, and even bodily areas. So in many ways, what we think happens is mindful awareness practice creates a state of activation in that moment that in a way harnesses the power of this prefrontal area in that moment. As you repeatedly practice something, that state can become a trait because neurons which are firing together wire together. So with the strengthening of this prefrontal area, what happens is, for example, if a child is angry and the brainstem is activating a fight response, the limbic area works with that to develop a feeling of fear. There's a sense of betrayal by what happens. So you're really angry, you're burning up, your heart is pounding, and everything is going to get you to fight, to get a knife, to get a gun, to hit someone, to do something really violent. But your prefrontal cortex has you pause. And the very parts of the brain that allow you to pause are also the same part of the brain, this middle prefrontal area, that allows you to have insight into what's going on. My heart's pounding, I'm really angry. Empathy for someone else. Maybe that guy didn't mean it, or maybe he's doing the best he can. And then even a sense of morality. So when we develop the middle prefrontal areas, we actually can not only pause, but we can think of the larger social good and enact a behavior that's better for everyone. And that's where mindfulness really alters things like bullying, like violent acts of aggression. And it's where mindfulness can change the world, literally one person, one relationship at a time.
Okay, we are going to do this together. And I'm sure some of you are a meditator. Some of you have never tried this, but we're all good, right? We're all going to do this together. Just a quick clarification, because we hear mindful eating, mindful babysitting, mindful washing our hair, mindful doing the dishes, and mindfulness meditation practice. So I just want to make this little distinction. so mindfulness means, and this is John Kabat-Zinn's definition, paying attention in a particular way, which is on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So paying attention in this way, not judgmentally, not caught up in our own discursive thinking, gives us the ability to direct and sustain our attention in any way that we choose. Mindfulness meditation practice is a tool for cultivating mindfulness. And it is a self-care tool. So I'm going to stop this share so I can see you all, because that's all I really want to do. And let's take our seat. I'm going to lead you in a short practice, and then Marsha's going to take over and lead you in another practice, and she'll wrap with some Q&A. Okay, take your seat, sit in the middle of your chair, king or queen on the throne, feet firmly on the floor, feet not crossed, hands on your thighs, not too tight, not too loose, which is to say everything is relaxed except your back is not leaning against the back of your chair. It's upright. It's like you have a string going through your body, a marionette, your head is being pulled to the sky, your chin is slightly tucked so that your head is resting over your body. Your mouth is slightly open and your tongue is resting on the roof of your mouth, so you're not clenching. Lower your gaze to about 4 feet in front of you. And now, this is so easy that people find this really difficult. I'm interested to see what you come up with. Okay, imagine you just did a really hard task. You know, I was going to say, if you're in the East, I'm in the Northeast, shoveled your driveway, right? I have a home in Vermont. Snow there 6 months of the year. Anyway, so you shoveled your driveway, or you made Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people. Remember when we used to have those a couple of years back? We would get all the little tables out, set up, made our house beautiful, cooked all the food, blah, blah, blah. So think of a big task, and then think of when you finish it, you put, if it's Thanksgiving dinner, you put all the food away, all the guests left, everybody had a good time, and you just go to your big chair, your favorite chair, and you sit down and you go, whew. So I want everyone to get into a state of, whew. Can you do that? Do that with me. Whew. Okay, we're very relaxed in our chair. And we're just going to let our senses be completely open. Hearing, smelling. Maybe you hear the fan or your heater. Tasting, I guess that wouldn't be so profound. But anyway, let your senses be completely open and just be. Feel your beingness. And if a thought arises, which it will, because that's the phenomenal play of the mind, just notice it. It's a cloud passing by. Notice it. Just be in open awareness. The clouds are not part of the sun. Your mind is the great eastern sun. Just be. Now, Marcia's going to continue this meditation and give you additional guidance.
Okay, so stay in the same position. And what we're going to do is we're just going to focus on our breath. So let yourself take a breath. Feel the cool air coming in through your nostrils, filling your lungs and your belly, and then breathe out. So this is all about just breathing in, feeling the breath, and then just breathing out. Just in and out. And as Ruth said, if you notice any thoughts, and you absolutely will, just notice without judgment and come back to your breath. I find it helpful to just feel the cool air coming in through my nostril, filling my lungs and my belly, and then just breathe out. So breathe in and out. And just do just a really quick scan of your body. Is there any tension in any one part? And if there is, just direct your breath to that part. And breathe in and breathe out the tension. Just in and out. And in and out. Feel your body calming down and relaxing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slowly just wiggle your toes. Just wiggle your fingers, maybe shake your hands a little bit. Shrug your shoulders up. And if you've had your eyes closed, slowly, slowly open your eyes and come back to the room. And you can see just in, what was that, maybe 4 minutes altogether? How do you feel? Amazing that just taking a minute, sometimes even, or 2 or 3 in the middle of your day can really help. We have this tool, we have our brain with us all the time, we have our breath, we have our body, so we don't have to get anything, we don't need anything, it's free to just use what we have and relax. So I think what we're going to do now is open this up for any questions that you had. I know we covered a lot in a little bit of time, but what questions do you have of both of us? Don't be shy.
Hi there. Should we, GGU, just FYI with the questions, you may put them in the chat, or similar to what you said earlier, Popcorn Sally, you can just pop in and unmute yourself. Or they've done so well that there are no questions. You've answered everything in this hour.
No, not possible, not possible. How many of you have a regular centering practice? Journaling, prayer. Suzanne, what do you do?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I tend to do a lot of mindful exercises while I'm walking my dog, and I'm focusing on the breath, and it's like long breathing in, long breathing out. And I tend to say like long breathing in with a gentleness to my heart, long breathing out, letting go.
Oh, beautiful.
That's like a meta practice. Yeah, great.
I've actually learned a lot of skills from, I'm from Cambridge, Ontario, but it's from the center Waypoint, and they have a mindfulness group that I've been part of.
Terrific. How about others?
Hey,
Is that
my name is
JL?
Zoe. I
JL?
have a question.
Oh,
Can you
Zoe.
hear me?
Yes.
I think Zoe, then JL, yeah?
Okay, great. I just wanted to know, is multitasking in general a bad practice?
Can I
The
answer
research-
this, Dr. Ruben?
Yeah, please.
You can't do it. You cannot do it. I worked for KPMG Consulting for years, and they used to tell us to multitask. You can't do it. You can do things in very rapid order. And no, it's not a good practice.
Okay, thank you.
It drives you crazy. I mean, so what's been your experience?
Well, I feel like, as women, as female, we tend to handle so many things at the same time. I'm on the phone cooking and answering the door. Amazon is delivering a package. I'm doing all of it.
Yeah, I get that, Zoe, but here's the point.
Yes.
You can move from one to the other, get the doorbell, the kids, put the lid on the pot. You can be present mindfully doing each one of those things.
Independently. Okay.
Yeah, just
Okay.
the idea is presence. The quality of your attention is what's important, not the number of the tasks.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, the issue is sometimes while I'm cooking, I'm also making a schedule for myself to do something else. And I think that's where I get in trouble.
Yes, that's where you get in trouble.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
And let me say, there's research that shows that people who think they're good at multitasking are actually the worst at multitasking.
Somebody once told me it was because I was so old. I told them I was born in the 18th century. They said, well, you're so old, you can't possibly multitask, right? But we're millennials. We do it all the time. That's how we live. Really? I love it when you talk to me and you're answering your phone and playing video games and doing, that's bullshit, you know?
Yeah.
I think
JL,
JL
you
had
had
a
a question.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to add, well, my name's Judy, actually. I just use
Judy.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can call me Judy. Yeah. I guess the piece that attracted me to come to this conference was the word resilience, because I love that word. I don't think we're not guaranteed that we're not going to get knocked down in life, but it's kind of how we pick ourselves back up. And so I kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about that. But I also wanted to share something, a quote that I heard. For me, humor is really important, aside from mindfulness and really being present, and but humor. And so I'll just share this with the group. I found something that said, to succeed in life, you need three things. You need a wishbone, a backbone, and a funny bone. And I don't know, that can just tickle me sometimes, but I don't know if you felt like you wanted to say something more on resilience. That would be really powerful.
Well, I mean, resilience is the ability to bounce back, when you're down. So it's having the reserve and the ability. I think a lot of it has to do with attitude. Years ago, I remember doing something and discovering the idea. There was a lot of research about locus of control. Is the control within you, or if it's external? And there were some studies done many years ago about people whose houses had burned down. And the people who were resilient, who said, okay, this happened and I'm just going to rebuild, did much, much better than people who their houses burned down and they just never got over it. So I think a lot of it has to do with your attitude. Ruth, I know you have some.
Yeah, I would just say that if you have a regular mindfulness discipline or other centering practice, that has, like mindfulness, for example, when you're off the cushion, it doesn't just stop, right? There's like a halo effect. And so it builds your resistance, right? So good to have a good disciplined centering practice, or more than one.
Yeah, there's a lot of research now, really good research in the lab, that's in the neuroscience labs, about mindfulness and how it helps calm down your nervous system and it stays with you. A lot. I was trained in transcendental meditation, and there's years of study that shows that it helps with people's health. It helps with how they respond to things. It's quite compelling research.
Yeah. Would it be possible to share the link on Dan Siegel's? That was the best short capsule. I mean, it was really, really good. I've seen many of those, but he nailed it. So if you could share the link on
actually he has a wonderful website too. Check him out.
Yeah, I've heard him.
We will get it to you somehow.
Thanks so much. It was wonderful. I appreciated it.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions?
I don't have any question, but I just wanted to second what the other person said. Thank you so much. This was really very helpful. In such a short time, you guys provided so much guidance, and I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We had another question about mindfulness being the same as ignoring something you don't like the construction noise outside.
No, mindfulness is not ignoring. It's hearing the noise without judgment. Look, you can't ignore reality. You just don't have to overlay your story.
You know, I took the John Kabat-Zinn's mindfulness-based stress reduction course a few years ago, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. And the first thing they have you do is focus on the big toe on your left foot. And every once in a while, I mean, I even tried it a couple nights ago, I was feeling a little bit of pain in one part of my body that was really bothering me. And I said, what's going on? You know, I'm not going to let this bother me. And I just said, okay, I focus on the big toe on your left foot. And the pain went away. Now there's a lot more than just focusing on the big toe on your left foot. It was an 8-week course, which I do recommend. It's really, really good. And I'm sure that they have it virtually now. But that was so useful because what John Kabat-Zinn discovered, I think it was in Boston, Ruth, in the hospitals, is that if he could teach people this, that they could live with really debilitating chronic pain. It was really astounding.
Why don't we leave them, Dr. Ruben, with a koan, something to contemplate, okay?
Okay.
What you resist persists. That's a good note to end.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for attending. I see some former students of mine. Great to see you. And some of my colleagues who teach at GGU. Thank you for coming. Really, really appreciate it.